Hello, citizens of Gotham. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching The Political Vigilante, now new and improved with more Bitcoin. We have a fantastic show for you today. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. But before we get to that, we have a very special guest that's going to be joining us in a second. So like, share, subscribe, and push this out on all of your social media. We're streaming on YouTube, on Rockfin, and of course on Twitter. I refuse to call it X, still Twitter to me. Thank you everybody in the chat. And I just tagged our guest. She's going to be joining us in a second, Jen Perelman. She's running for Congress in Florida's 25th district, which is against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is the epitome of the evil empire. We've had Jen on the show before. It's been a couple of years. So please share this out on your social media. And also you can ask some questions in the chat if you'd like. And go to grahamelwood.com. Look at that, a political vigilante mug. Isn't that just amazing? You can just drink hot cups of truth all day. This is organic green tea that I'm drinking. I'm not a coffee guy. So I had a vegan smoothie today after yoga. It's a very, very, very good day. Very solid day. The weather's getting warmer, so we will be doing more surfing, God willing. So let us, I know she is probably very busy. There's other ways you can support our show right there, and you can support that. That is actually a Lightning address. Some of you are preferring Lightning versus the on-chain address. So there that is. You can support us any way, shape, or form. Let us bring her on the show. She is running for Congress in Florida's 25th district. Returning guest of the show, Jen Perelman. Jen, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent.
I didn't realize you were a surfer. I should have known. And the salt and pepper thing is really very, very appealing. Suits you very much like it.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's becoming more salt and pepper, but yeah, we'll take it. George Clooney got away with it. Maybe I can. I'm like a dollar.
I'm too angry at him right now. Don't talk. I've loved that man for like my entire adult life, and right now I'm like disgusted. So that's been harsh.
I can't blame you. He's got Hollywood politics, to say the least.
I'm so sad about that. He was so good on Sudan. Remember, like years ago, remember he got arrested, the whole thing. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, Hollywood is, they seem woefully out of touch. I mean, that Met Gala, while people are protesting the genocide that's happening, was like, I mean, I tweeted it. I guess Hollywood thinks that Hunger Games was a documentary series.
Yeah, it really looked like the Capitol versus District 12. But for some of us, we've been seeing that for a long time. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just District 12 is sort of, it varies. Like District 12 is Haiti. District 12 is Yemen, right? Like there's places that are just District 12. And we have them in this country too. Don't get me wrong. But it's different. More like in this country, it's more like District 7 and 8.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, so you're running for office in Florida against Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah.
You've had to battle this, the corrupt side of the Democratic Party. I mean, you've had to go head on with them. What is different about this campaign? What are you doing? And I don't know. What do you think your chances are?
Well, I always say I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it were possible. That I wouldn't waste my time if I didn't think it were possible. That being said, I actually feel that this is pretty promising, and it's still going up against an entrenched incumbent, right? Like that's still a really hard thing to do. In 20, when I ran the first time, we got close to 30% and raised about $400,000 without knowing what we were doing. Like really had no idea what we were doing, just kind of, using common sense and stuff, but not really strategy. And we also lost about 2 months of canvas time, because of the pandemic, which for grassroots that's harsh.
Right.
So fast forward 4 years, there are so many different variables, not the least of which is our district has changed. And this very affluent North Dade strip from Aventura down to Surfside, if anybody is familiar with, Broward and Miami-Dade, which demographically is affluent and very Jewish. And also from a canvassing perspective is impossible to canvass because it's all high rises, all, you can't just go in there. You can't, or gated subdivisions, or it's not working people. You know what I mean? So it's just the change of the district has been very good for us. And I think that'll affect her a lot. I think that our canvassability now is increased. The area we gained is called Miramar, which is regular people, working people, heavily Latino, Islander, Haitian, like just mixed different people, but not gated. And so very canvassable for us. And that's where we win, was with the ground game, because she'll outraise us. I mean, without doubt, she's been fundraising. She doesn't ever stop fundraising, even if she's not being challenged. She's just always fundraising. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We'll have people on the ground and volunteers and knock doors. So at the end of the day, I think we'll get what we need for fundraising. But yeah, I mean, we need love and support. we need love and support from all around the country. And we've been getting it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we've seen the progressives run against entrenched Democrats before. It's a hard thing to do. But you've done it now a second time, and I think that the political landscape is very much changed. I interviewed Dr. Jill Stein a couple months ago, and I kind of said to her, "Hey, I support what you're doing, but what's new? What's changed?" And she seems to think, and there's data to support this, that because it's Biden versus Trump again, that people are really fed up. And I think what is also motivating people is what Israel is doing in Gaza. And you've put out on your Twitter that you're not going to take any AIPAC money.
I don't think they'd give it to me at this point. I got to tell you, I think that bridge is sufficiently in flames. So no, I won't be taking the AIPAC money.
Well, let's talk about that, because this is obviously a huge subject, and the corporate media. It's funny. I live in west side of LA. I'm very close to UCLA's campus, where huge protests are happening. I'm also, USC's down the street, and I follow all of these activists online, and they're showing me how these like pro-Israel Zionists came in and attacked the pro-Palestinian encampments, and many people in the pro-Palestinian encampments are Jewish. It's like Jewish Voices for Peace, and it's like, but then the media is like, oh, the media paints this like protest got out of hand and agitators on both sides. I'm like, that's not what happened. And also, when the pro-Israel people were like shooting bottle rockets at the students, the cops did nothing.
No.
So this is, I do a weekly podcast with Lee Camp, and he's very active in this. And I've had Katie Halper on the show. And so, you're Jewish, you're in a like you said, largely Jewish district.
Yeah.
Where this is a huge moment in history in America. And if you're out, what you're doing is very outspoken, and I appreciate that. But, people, Abby Martin has gotten death threats, and, this is no joke. So how are you addressing this, and what are you saying to people in your district, mainly those that are Jewish, that are probably raised to be sort of pro-Israel? What are you saying to them?
Well, first of all, I was raised Zionist. So I grew up in North Miami Beach, and everybody was about Israel. It was just so, everybody was into that. And so I know where they're coming from. It's taken me a long time to deprogram. And so at some point I did have a certain amount of empathy over the years for people that couldn't quite wrap their head around it. It's like learning that Santa Claus is a serial killer. It's just really disturbing for people. It was hard for me. I had my bat mitzvah in Israel. It was hard for me. It wasn't like, I don't want this to be true. Like that's what the Zionists don't understand. And I think that when I'm talking to people, there is a level of credibility based on the fact that I do know where they're coming from. I do know where they were raised. And so I understand that. So I think there is a certain level of credibility there. But at the end of the day, there's going to be people that are just too far gone. And there are. Now, for the most part, I do see this as a class distinction amongst Jews. If you look at it, it's really interesting. And definitely in this district. Like, I mean, I can't speak to the actual numbers, but the very hardcore, unwilling to look at what's going on are more privileged people. Jews in that, and then the people that are more not that are just more regular people. There is definitely a class dichotomy that I'm noticing in the Jewish community on this issue, which doesn't surprise me because I actually noticed that across the board on this issue.
That's almost every issue.
Yeah, well,
comes down to that, right? Like,
yeah.
The people with money and power, regardless of their religion or whatever, are like, I don't want this threatened.
Exactly.
And working class people are like, hey, this isn't fair.
But what's amazing is, and I personally like feel so proud of these college students. I am so like, they are so inspiring to me. And the fact that they're willing to, and it's not, I mean, yes, there has been violence and there has been that to some extent, but for the most part, really risk their careers and livelihood. And we're talking like the best and the brightest people in this country. And that is scaring the crap out of the empire, because these are the people that they're supposed to be passing their baton to. And it's not working out that way for them. And so they're flipping this narrative like somehow these are violent people, but they're really losing. They're really losing the narrative because we have it in real time. We're watching this. It's not like, I feel like saying the 90s called, they want their gaslighting technique back. You know, like how do you think you're getting away with this? And the only people that are buying it, that are repeating those talking points about calling out anybody talking about anything ranging from hostages to butt Hamas to that the protesters are in any way violent. In any way, anybody with those few talking points are generally affluent white people. And that's just what I'm noticing. And I also would like to point out that I really don't care how students feel. I just don't. I just don't. Like the idea that there's Jewish students even saying they don't feel safe, which by the way, I haven't seen one firsthand account of any. All we keep seeing are mouthpieces saying Jewish students don't feel comfortable. Jewish students don't feel comfortable. I haven't seen a whole lot of testimony, people saying I felt threatened or giving some description of a situation where I haven't seen one thing yet.
And
have you?
Well, I haven't either. And, Muslim students haven't felt real safe since over 20 years.
Way longer.
Like,
it's absurd. I have a friend here who is Palestinian. And I've only known her since we're adults. Like I didn't know her when she was little, even though she grew up down here. And when she was little and lived in a very Jewish area, she would tell people she was Jordanian. And I've come to learn that a lot of Palestinians do that. So now when I meet somebody that's Jordanian, I'll say, are you Jordanian, or are you Palestinian Jordanian? Because they have felt so scared to be who they are. And so when I see people saying that Jewish students are afraid, it now, people. You will not survive this world. I'm sorry. And no one gives you the right to just always feel comfortable. Sorry. That's not how this works.
No, you're not always going to feel comfortable. And I always say, why don't you go to the encampments on any of these campuses? I guarantee you're going to meet Jews there who are like they're driving this. And I want to get back to the thing you said about it's hard to kind of come to grips with this, like as you put it, Santa Claus is a serial killer. It's Lee Camp said this on our show, Government Secrets. He's like, Graham, it's very confronting. And I can identify with it in the sense of that I'm Irish American, was raised Catholic. And I saw the Catholics go through this when the pedophile priest thing really started to gain traction.
Yeah.
They were really confronted by this. And if you watch the movie, I always tell people, I go, especially like Jewish people that are conflicted with this. I go, watch the movie Spotlight. That's a true story. Those are great actors and everything.
Yeah,
They're
it was
playing
good.
actual people. It was directed by an Irish Catholic guy, Tom McCarthy. And the crux of that movie, if you haven't seen it, if you haven't, it's been a while, watch it again, is that the Irish Catholic community in Boston had to face the fact that they allowed this to happen. Because I'll just give you, I understand about you're raised a certain way in an Irish Catholic home. If you were to come home and say, Father O'Malley abused me, your parents would crack you in the mouth.
Yeah.
And say, don't you ever say that about him. That's how this is allowed to happen. So in the same way of like, you're raised Zionist, you got to get married in Israel. Like this is such a thing. And I'm seeing some of my Jewish friends are so confronted by this. And then they're just, social media is very good at feeding back to you what you want to hear. And they're like, oh, anti-Semitism is on the rise. And I'm like, okay, I'm sure that it is, but who
because of people like them, because of people like my congresswoman. If you're going to stand there and keep conflating Zionism and Judaism, yeah, that's going to it's what this is really interesting. This woman is simultaneously fostering anti-Semitism and Islamophobia at the same time. I can't even fathom how I would go about doing that if I tried. Like, you know, like it's really, that would be a real effort for me. But you know, anti-Semitism is definitely, and it's going to get worse because the type of people that are attacking the encampments, with the Israeli flag or the counter protesters who I do believe a lot of them are paid, by the way. That's another issue. We could get into that. But those people are now out there sort of symbolically representing Jewish people just based on how it looks. And so, yeah, it is definitely going to, honestly, it's not a good look for us. It's just not a good look, you know? So yeah, I could see that it does. Definitely we're going to have increasing anti-Semitism, but it isn't the people that are protesting the war in Gaza. Those are two completely different things.
Like, I retweeted this interview with a Holocaust survivor, and there's numerous Holocaust survivors that are pro-Palestinian because they're like a genocide. They're like, never again isn't just for us. It should never again should be for everybody. And they're like vehemently appalled and opposed that people are justifying this endless bombing in Gaza using the Holocaust. They're like, don't use us and our name and what we went through for that at all. And I applaud these people for like out there marching. I mean, it's heartwarming to see, and that they're just like, no, I'm not falling for this. And then all the videos of all the stuff Netanyahu has said over the years that that are never getting played on mainstream media. Like that is, I mean, he's flat out said it. We own the Congress. He said this 20 years. There's a video I just saw 20 years ago. We own America.
Yeah.
We own them.
Everyone. Yeah. No, they have no regard. And the only way that this is ever, like when people ask me, well, what's the solution? The solution isn't anything that's going to come by diplomatically. That's unfortunate. Israel has made that clear. They absolutely refuse to allow a Palestinian state, period. So the concept that people are still talking about a two-state solution, especially people in our government, you're liars. You're just lying. First of all, a two-state solution was never real. That was never real. It was always a Zionist talking point to justify land theft, but that, you know, whatever. But to say that you would even think that now, when Netanyahu, within the past few weeks and months and years, has said over and over and over, they will not abide a Palestinian state. I'm choosing to believe them at what they're saying. And so therefore it will not be by choice. It's going to unfortunately require some sort of like global hammer of Thor needs to come down on them and have like people on the ground or UN peacekeepers, or I am so not a military strategy person, but it's not going to happen willingly. Clearly.
No, I mean, well, I think some of it is and it's something I've talked about on my show just in a number of ways. For any solution, you have to affect the ruling elite's pocketbook. You have to hit their power. Yeah. And that's what these college students are doing, because as you stated earlier, I mean, this started at Columbia. So Columbia University, for anybody watching, those are the ruling elite's children go to Columbia.
Yes.
So, and these kids are supposed to be groomed to just take the next generation of power, and they're not doing that. So there's one thing. These kids just saying, I'm not giving tuition to a school that's funding this. So you gotta vote. I always say vote with your dollars and protest with your dollars. When you impede their ability to fund these wars and this corrupt, whatever, fill in the blank of anything, corporate, whatever, that's the only time that they wake up. So let me ask, let's get into some policy points outside of, when you're in Congress, tell us what your platforms would be, what you'd be voting for, what you'd be voting against.
So I am somebody who is definitely like what I consider an actual leftist. It's not in terms of like what people consider the social political correctness, but just somebody who really believes that it's a class situation, and I fight for the least of these. Now, the least of these is different in different times and different places. So for me, all policy goes back to that. I'm very big on the idea of a 21st century economic bill of rights. I think that we should be guaranteed things like healthcare and housing and clean environment, certain, things that I think are important. And so the top three that I'm really focused on right now, outside of impending genocide that's happening, is healthcare, housing, and jobs. And we have a serious housing problem, although I keep arguing it really isn't housing. It's we don't pay people enough money for their work, right? Like if everybody made a living wage, that would by definition mean you could afford housing. And so the housing wouldn't be the issue. Like we can make more houses. So but yeah, housing and just—
Let me interject this real quick.
Yeah.
This is something that I think maybe you're aware of this, maybe you're not. Part of the housing issue, you're correct. I mean, obviously it's wages, but you have companies like BlackRock.
Oh, yes.
After 2008 bought up, and they're deliberately keeping properties off the market, and they're shooting price up. I live in LA. I could look out my window and see several new buildings that were built in the last 4 or 5 years. And it's not affordable housing. It's $2,500 to $3,000 one-bedroom apartments, $2,000 studios, and they're not. This is all over LA. This is all over the United States.
It's here. We have a big problem here with that. And we're going to actually end up with this huge amount of unhoused seniors that are on fixed incomes and have nowhere to go, because the companies that, like you say, that are buying them up and letting them sit vacant because they can take the loss, like they don't care. They'll just take it at a loss to jack up the prices. And then our insurance rates are such that condo assessments are so high that so many people that are retired and on fixed incomes are not going to be able to stay in their current housing situation. But yet they can't afford a lateral move anywhere right now either, because you can't afford to go anywhere. So what are these people going to do? So a lot of the issues with housing are state. But in terms of regulating those big corporations, that is completely the stuff that needs to happen, and cracking down on all of that monopolistic stuff and predatory behavior. And this goes towards my thought that there are certain things that should not be for profit, or at least we need to have a sector that isn't for profit, whether it's housing, and certainly healthcare should not be for profit. Education should not be for profit. Although I don't mind as long as our not-for-profit education is really awesome. If people want to have something else, whatever. But I just not our common good services, and that includes housing for people, should not be all for profit. There has to be a way for us to pull some of that out of that system and make it so that it's, everybody has access to a clean and safe place to be. And it's just, I feel like that's a right.
Yeah, it absolutely is a right. So let me ask you this. I mean, part of what is causing a lot of these problems is Wall Street and the big central banks and all that stuff. So what is your, I'm obviously, no bones about it, in the upper corner of this is a Bitcoin donation. I'm a Bitcoiner. I'm pro Bitcoin. I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm not a fan of the altcoins. I think those are more susceptible to scams or whatever. So what would your policy be as a member of Congress with regard? Because I know Biden has this bill, SB 121, and I think there needs to be some regulation personally, but I'm worried about forcing Americans to all use a central banking digital currency, which is just a digital Federal Reserve slave coin, in my opinion. So what is your stance on that?
I honestly don't know enough about Bitcoin. I know here's the thing. This is one of those areas that to me is a little bit niche over the past couple of years, and I haven't really focused on it and I'm not within the realm of investing either. So, but I would definitely be the person to make sure to consider all of it. And I have no personal agenda in it. So it would really come down to, what do the majority of people really think about this? What is in the best interest for the most people? How do we do it so people don't get screwed? And I generally view everything from the lens of protecting regular people. So that's just how I operate. So whatever that would look like, and I don't know enough about the policies regarding Bitcoin. And I don't, to be honest with you, I don't completely understand it. It's one of those things like logarithm, like it's been explained to me a million times, or the point spread at a ball game. My husband, like, he can't believe that I still don't understand this. There's just certain things that the rule against perpetuities in law school, a lot of people have trouble with. Like, I'm just not going to understand it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, certain things are complicated to me in terms of that, but yeah.
Well, first of all, I give you credit for admitting that up front, because I think a lot of politicians or people in public spaces don't understand Bitcoin, but then they just repeat something they heard, like Liz Warren say, it's bad for the environment, and she doesn't know what she's talking about.
I won't do that. Like, if that's the thing, I am a research person, like, that goes down rabbit holes. So if something were sitting in front of me that was policy, I would have it, like, I would research it and talk to people and meet with people and make sure I really understood it. And so that's why I feel it would be really, it wouldn't be smart to make a comment on something that I don't really know that much about right now. Is that not the right answer?
Well, no, that's a great answer. It's just shocking because politicians don't speak like that.
I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant.
Which, that's why I applaud you, and I have you on the show. Well, I'll say I appreciate you saying that, Jen. And I would offer. I said, it's funny. Dr. Stein said a very similar thing to me. She goes, I'm willing to open about it, and she sent me her person that runs her, her finance or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to have a conversation with him. So I offer to you as well. I would love to have a longer conversation with you. I could even set up a Zoom call with someone that's very, very knowledgeable on this. And because I'm trying to get as many people running for office to understand. I'll just say this basically, just to plant this seed. Bitcoin is digital gold. The cryptocurrencies are like stocks. They're digital stocks. So
right. I understand that it's the I don't know if you say it's like the OG, but I understand that it's the one that actually has a substance attached to it.
Yes, because
I understand that.
Yeah, there's no Bitcoin CEO. There's no offices that can be raided by the FBI. It lives on the blockchain.
You know what? I think my sort of reluctance with a lot of that is, and this is where I am, like, just very, I want to live in the woods, right? Like in a cob house in the woods and be a dryad. Like, so my thought is, what happens with Bitcoin when there's no grid anymore? What happens with that? So, like, in my mind, like, when people say, well, what are your thoughts on environment? My thoughts on environment are that we're going to need to degrowth, and we're going to need to replant. And it's not just a matter of doing what we're doing and just finding new energy resources. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And that's my thought, is like, eventually we're all going to be living in smaller, sustainable, regenerative ag communities. At least that's my vision. And so that's why a lot of the more digital stuff, to me, I wonder, like, what place would I have for that? Like, what place where they'll be in my sort of utopian / apocalyptic future that we're going to be contending with? No, but seriously, like, what happens with those things if we have no more grid?
Several things, Sue. First of all, if we have no more power grid, we're going to have bigger problems than I can't use my Bitcoin. So that's the first
why
thing.
I'm talking about living in small, sustainable, regenerative communities. That's the point. That's what I'm thinking.
But one of the things that grew Bitcoin in the country of El Salvador was they started what they called a circular economy in a small town of El Zonte, which is a little beach surfing town in El Salvador. And they started using it because it's peer-to-peer. And so you have roughly 2.5 billion people on planet Earth that don't have access to traditional banking, but they all have a smartphone, right? So we can just do a transaction, you and I together, and we can buy goods and services with it. It's a store of value. And therefore, there isn't the Federal Reserve, which is an illegal banking cartel, coming in dictating it. There's the IMF saying, oh, we're going to pull your funding if you don't do this corrupt thing or that corrupt thing, right? They did that famously with Ecuador to make sure that they gave up Julian Assange. So Bitcoin is just going back to what gold was used for. I mean, humans have used we've used coffee beans, cacao beans, and since the dawn of time. Printed money has only been around for about 300 years. Gold has been around for thousands more. So that's all it is, right? So it's just a way to do that. And it's, if you want to send money, if we go into a more global economy, you want to send money to your family in another part of the world, you don't have to use all these banking fees because there's all these middlemen agencies that are designed to kind of fleece you of your money. So it is more what you're talking about in a sustainable, aggregate, small community. It is more sustainable. I've seen it firsthand in El Salvador. Okay. So that's the thing I like. Can it be? So
you're saying it's not completely dependent on internet technology?
Well,
and I know what you're saying. Like if we lose that, we lose everything, which is why I'm going to be in a camper with a couple of chickens and, have my whole little thing going on, because that's what I mean, I don't know.
Your bank account, all of your money in regular bank account,
everything's worthless.
Is worthless. Everything. Yeah. So then,
okay. So here's the other question. So let's say that, and again, I honestly really do not know. It would have to be also per policy. But I would call you and ask you to look it over and see what you think, and I'd ask for opinions and suggestions. But what happens when it really, at the end of the day, you're still having to pay taxes in US dollars, right? So you're still bound by the currency here. So what, you know what I mean? Like, how do you ever escape that?
Well, that's why I would love to see forward-thinking people in Congress, such as yourself, get knowledgeable about this. Because, well, first of all, let's just look at the United States. So it's a monetary sovereign. Once Nixon got us off of the gold standard in 1971, the United States can print its own currency.
Yeah.
So
I'm an MMT person. I understand the MMT. That I'm good. I totally get that.
So right there, taxation is theft. We don't even need taxes, right? So
not income taxes, but here's the thing is that if you live in states, let's say,
yes,
you still do, right?
Yes.
So you still do, and it's still going to be in that currency.
So you could do, so like the city of Miami several years ago started accepting payments in Bitcoin. You could pay parking, whatever little registration fees the city had. So you could start doing that on a city level, on a state level, and on a federal level. You could start accepting Bitcoin to pay your state taxes, to pay your, and if we're doing transactions, right, there's nothing, because as you said, and you bring up a great point, local governments in the United States cannot print their own money. So they are dependent upon tax revenue, usually sales tax and property tax and income tax, but mainly sales tax to fund all of the local things, right? Of course, every state does get some federal money. So if we were on a Bitcoin standard, then a product would be whatever, $10, and it would have sales tax, but you would just pay for it in Bitcoin. And then that Bitcoin would be the taxing. You would use the Bitcoin to fund the way you fund everything else.
Now we're talking about but then I just don't see the powers that be going for that. I don't see powers that be saying, yes, we'll accept Bitcoin instead of our own currency, because I feel like then they're losing control of the whole situation.
Which is why if we all use Bitcoin, just like you don't see the powers that be just suddenly defunding Israel and letting this thing. So as you said, it's going to have to happen another way. So it's going to need economic activism, right? So
but this has to be global. Like what we're talking about obviously has to be global. So is there as much, like, where is there the most interest in this? Like, where do you think
it's in developing countries, because they don't have it. So again, El Salvador made Bitcoin legal tender 3 years ago, and it's now it paid off half of its IMF loan. It'll be completely out of debt by 2030, and it's attracting business. And then you've got all of these circular economies popping up, what we call Bitcoin bubbles, the Philippines, Africa, all throughout Central and South America. And you're seeing other governments start to realize the power of this. I mean, you had the Houston Fire Department pension make 10% of their pension into Bitcoin, right? So people are starting to see this. Is a big government going to, like the United States, going to go to Bitcoin? No, the US will go to Bitcoin last, but it will do it because if everyone is doing it, which they already are, and institutional money is getting involved. Institutional money wouldn't get involved in Bitcoin if they thought it was just some crazy scam for hackers and, gamers or whatever. So
yeah, I have I'm completely open to all of it. I have I really don't have a position. And if that's something that would be in people's interest, I'm fine with it. It's just not something that is definitely not some hill that I'm really even going to fight about. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm just not with the capital thing to begin with. That's why. So like in my mind, however you all want to like do that, that's just fine. You do that. Do that.
Well, I mean,
in a camper.
It can actually be a thing that helps support regenerative agriculture, and it's something just plant this seed using the agricultural motif here of something to learn more for you, because it actually feeds and fits into all of the things that you stand for once you get it. I didn't get it at first either. I'm a anti-war, pro-labor socialist.
Yeah.
I'm not a finance or a tech guy. And once I started to understand it, I started to see, like, Max Kaiser wrote an article that was in The Guardian in 2014 saying it is a tool for activism, because if activists had real money power, we could change things very quickly.
Right. Well, it's definitely,
look at the GameStop thing.
Their system. It definitely, I see it as part of the rebellion. You know what I mean? I definitely see it in globally as part of the rebellion. But yeah, I'll study that. I have to also learn more about AI, because I definitely don't really understand a whole lot about that either, other than as someone who is generally concerned about privacy rights and civil liberties. I have some very serious concerns.
Yeah, it's a whole new world, AI, and it's something where I'm learning myself. So, Jen, I don't want to take up any more. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your honest answers. Where can people go to your website, learn about you, especially if they live in Florida, live in your district, and or have family that lives there as well?
Yeah, so District 25 is South Broward, so it's southwest of Fort Lauderdale. We have, I think, 7 municipalities in here. But our primary is August 20th. You guys can check out the website at gen2024.org. And when people sign up, you can volunteer from anywhere. We obviously need donations, and we need people to share us on social media. Share it, spread the love.
So, and your Twitter handle and all that?
It's Jen FL25, I think. I don't know. Let me look.
Yes,
I don't.
Okay, Jen 4FL25.
4FL25, yeah. I'm not really on the social media thing. I got off a few years ago. It's just, they're too mean. It's way too toxic.
It is pretty toxic.
It's ridiculous. I don't need that level of toxicity in my head. You know what I mean? I spend most of my time trying to not have that. So why would I? And also, people don't say things that they would say to you to your face.
Oh, yes, of course.
And I find that just so pussyish, and it bothers me. And as somebody who's Gen X, often when I see things people write, I'm like, oh, I would come say that to my face. Why you wouldn't say that to my face? But you're perfectly okay to put that there. I just,
that is such a Gen X thing. That is such a Gen X thing. Like, what'd you say to me? Because in Gen X, we got into fights, like fist fights.
Yes. We'll throw down with you.
Yes.
Without a doubt. And that's the thing people don't realize. Like, they'll put it all out there. But then if you saw them in person, they'll pretend like they don't know you. Because they're cowards. They're not really willing to put their necks out. Oh, yeah, no. Gen X, I'm not having it.
No, Gen X ain't having it. Well, guys, that I just put on the screen. This is if you want to donate to her campaign. I also put it in the chat. So you can you can even just also go to her Twitter page, and there's a link to this where you can donate to her campaign.
All sorts of fun stuff happening here down in Florida. Nothing beats the summertime in Florida swamp.
Another thing I would learn if another reason to learn about Bitcoin is you could take Bitcoin donations.
Huh.
And Bitcoin's
and wait, and is that even FEC legal? Is that legal?
That I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, we have issues. FEC.
Yeah. Well, Jen, I wish you the best of luck. I appreciate you being outspoken. I appreciate your stance on what's happening in Palestine. And I really like, it's bold that you're doing that and having to like rewire your upbringing. Like that is a, having had to do that myself and be confronted on a lot of issues and having to
It's
really,
harsh.
it's harsh. It's harsh. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
not easy for people to do.
No, but and I'm not scared now. Look, I realize that this is somewhat risky. And if we get more and more, as we get more and more viable, there's no shortage of rabid Zionists. There's no shortage of moneyed interests that, do not want an anti-Zionist Jew getting into Congress for a lot of reasons. And so, yeah, I mean, but it is what it is, What am I supposed to do? I mean, I'm not going to hide. It's already out there, I can do. You got to go all in. It's like, at this point, I have 3.5 years of me basically baiting people. So what would be the point now?
That's a great point. Well, Jen, thank you for your time. Thank you for the conversation and being open and all that stuff. And if you want to learn more about Bitcoin, hit me up.
Absolutely. Thanks, Graham.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
So that's how you support, folks. That's what we're doing. I mean, I want to talk to alternative candidates. I'm going to still do that. But every candidate I bring on the show, now that the show's like Bitcoin focused, any candidate I bring on, we're going to ask them what they think about the BTC. I really give people credit. That's actually a sign of intelligence to say, I don't know. I'm not sure. When people just say, yeah, and because I've never met one person with a legitimate criticism of Bitcoin that actually understood what Bitcoin was. Their criticisms all came from these, like, they didn't get it points. So I really, and she was asking questions about it. And the grid thing, that's a fair question. But like I always say, if the grid goes down, we're all in a lot of trouble. There's way more problems, like the water supply. Like, how are we going to refrigerate our food? How are we going to make ice? Like how that's going to be a bigger issue than I can't get access to my Bitcoin. Because if you won't get access to your Bitcoin, you won't get access to your money, your regular money. So yeah. Gen X here too, but I've not been impressed with it, Gen X's bravery overall. Yeah, we tend to, sometimes we get to be two loners. Right on. Blazehaver Wolf is here. Can't really moderate, but shave your knuckles for justice. You're doing great. I put 3 caffeinated beans in my decaf coffee. Debbie Wasserman Drift plays dirty. Watch out if you get anywhere close. Yeah, I know. Hello. AstraZeneca vaccine pulled from every market in the world. Ooh, wow. That's crazy. Hello, David's vegan. Two of my favorite peeps, they Graham and Jen. Right on. Thank you so much. Happy Wednesday to you. The more I listen, the more I like you. Thank you so much. The cream rises to the top, baby. Right on. Graham's a legitimate son. Papa. Well, if your mom was a comedy club waitress. Oops. All right, well, let's get into a couple of these Bitcoin segments. That was great. What a great conversation. Really straightforward and honest. I like it. That was really great. That was really great. That's really cool. All right, let me get this. This is in Bitcoin Magazine. All right, let me get that queued up. Folks, you can support. That is a Bitcoin Lightning wallet. You can send me just a couple of sats if you want. I very much appreciate that. It's easier than the other wallet I had up there was on chain. So like if you have let's say the Phoenix wallet or a wallet of Satoshi, what you would do is you would hit the send button, which would then turn on your camera, and you would go right to that. Boom. Oh, it says invoice has expired. Ooh, we're going to pull that down. That's what we got to do. We've got to get there. Boom, prepare transaction. Shazam, on chain. Yeah, the Lightning ones are tough because the Lightning ones expire. So that's on chain. Damn, I miss Jen Perelman watching now. No worries. Is this the Ethereum enthusiasm show? I'm confused. Ron Placone is in the chat, everybody. I'm being trolled by Ron Placone. Oh, no, Ron, we don't talk Ethereum here anymore. God, he doesn't listen. Isn't there some cat video, Ron, you should be watching? Like, can we just talk without you bothering us all the time? Shouldn't you be doing some cat something, Ron? Like, isn't there like a cat toy you should be making, or writing another cat script or something, Ron? Folks, you can also go to grahamelwood.com and get a PV mug, a political vigilante mug. Boom. I'm out there looking for someone who wants to. There's a cat coin. It's the best. Ron, don't buy altcoin. I've told you don't do that. Just be a bit, just convert everything to Bitcoin, Ron. Cat coin, Ron. It's just. All right, buddy. I know. It's going to be the next Shiba Inu. All right, let me get this next hot, fresh segment queued up. Unless Ron wants to come on the show. Ron, are you busy? You're probably at Petco right now buying catnip. Have you been drinking your own catnip, Ron? Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to come on this show. Just come troll me in the chat and then I'll put you on. It's really that easy. Or run for Congress. I'm en route to the beach and not thinking about altcoins. Well, have fun at the beach, Ron. I know when you live at the beach, you walk at the beach. It's just great, I'm gonna go to the beach today, watch the sunset. It's gonna be fantastic. I'm gonna have a little dinner. I'm gonna just real quick. This is not what we do on the show, but I just want to check. The goddamn Cubs lost. How stupid. All right. Cubs they weren't tied for first. Now they're out. But the Brewers lost too. They had a chance to take a lead in this division. All right. Let's do this next segment while Ron walks to the beach. I'll be back in less than 10 for our next segment. Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elder, and you are watching The Political Vigilante, now with new and improved Bitcoin. You can support our show. Scan that right there, guys. It is an on-chain Bitcoin address. You can donate a little bit of money to the show. I appreciate it. Also, there's support the show back there. Super chats are back. So you can go to Venmo, you can go to rockfin.com/Graham Elwood. We have bonus content there, and go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood, where we put all the full live streams up there and the audio podcast. It's the only place you can get the audio of this show. And it's only for $5 a month. So you're supporting what I'm doing, and I appreciate it. So we are now way more focused on Bitcoin in the show. I've been talking about it for 4 years. But we're still talking politics and how Bitcoin relates to it. We just had Jen Perelman on the show. She's running for Congress against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And we talked about a lot of subjects in addition to what she thinks about crypto and crypto regulation. So I'll be posting that video, or if you're a Patreon member, you can watch the full video later today. So this is a new bill that's being introduced, and we need to pay attention to these bills for several reasons. One, does there need to be, in general, some type of crypto regulation with regards to these, like after the FTX thing? Yeah, but be careful that these types of bills are going to just say anyone that owns Bitcoin is illegal, because Bitcoin is the real threat. That Bitcoin is the threat to the Federal Reserve. It's the threat to the central banks. So be careful on how they try to regulate that. That's what's scary to me. Regulating corrupt exchanges so we don't have another FTX. I'm theoretically in favor of that, but I just don't trust the federal government. I don't trust Republicans or Democrats to do anything the right way. And they're going to try to force this CBDC on us. They're going to say, hey, everyone start using the United States central banking digital currency, and everyone gets a free $100. And most people just take that free $100. And then you're going to have that. And then you're going to donate to some cause like, oh, I'm for peace. And they're going to lock you up or seize your money or whatever. So that's why I don't like the central banking digital currency. So this is from Bitcoin Magazine. Just then, U.S. Congressman Frenchhill gives a speech supporting overturning SEC rule that prevents regulated financial firms from custodying Bitcoin and crypto. So here's what this Republican had to say.
I was recognized for 3 minutes.
Well, thank Chairman McHenry and thank Congressman Flood of Nebraska for this excellent work in this Congressional Review Act resolution to roll back the SEC's failure in their staff accounting bulletin 121. It would reshape the business of custody in this country. This is not just about crypto. This is a sweeping rule that the SEC has implemented without following the Administrative Procedures Act. The GO says it's a rule. Well, if it's a rule, it needs to go through the Administrative Procedures Act and have a comment period and get people involved, because as Ranking Member Waters noted, they did not consult with the banking regulators who have the primary role of supervising custody in this country. A custodian is someone who holds your assets for you, whether it's shares of stock or acres of forest land or rental house or 10 Bitcoin. Holding reserves against the assets in custody is not standard financial services practice. This staff accounting bulletin is misguided. It requires that money be set aside for that category of assets, of digital assets in custody. It's part of a broader attack by the Biden administration to treat digital assets differently from all other assets. And that doesn't make any sense to House Republicans. Under Mr. McHenry's leadership and Mr. Thompson's leadership of the Ag Committee, we have a fit-for-purpose approach that, in fact, directs the SEC and the CFTC how to handle digital assets. Unfortunately, this accounting bulletin is in the wrong direction. That's why we have the Congressional Review Act. That's why we're using Article 1 authority under the Constitution to say this is the wrong direction and that we will all come to this House floor and say it should be repealed and sent back. And I would remind my friends on the other side of the aisle, senior Biden official, Vice Chairman Barr of the Fed, Acting Comptroller Sue, all testified before our committee. They were not consulted by the SEC about this staff accounting bulletin. It is a significant change. It is a rule. It should have gone to the Administrative Procedures Act to be out for public comment. That's why I thank the gentleman from Nebraska for leading the charge on this important resolution. I urge adoption, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from North Carolina Reserve.
Okay, let's see what the comments are on Twitter. The world is changing. We need people in office like this to understand. This is other people just posting there now. It says all roads lead to Bitcoin. You cannot have free speech if you don't have free money. The control of money is the first step in ending human rights. This is the thing when you post something with Bitcoin, and then all these spammers come in. Yeah. So preventing custody overall, I think is a good thing. But I mean, the real, because what happened with the FTX thing is what corrupt banks do with fiat currency, right? These exchanges say you can store your Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever with us, and we'll give you interest and give you a staking fee. And then they basically gamble with the money. That's what FTX did. That's what the banks do with your regular money. Like if you have sizable amounts in your regular bank, I guarantee if you went there today to try to get cash out, they wouldn't have it. If you were like, I have 10 or 20 grand in the bank, I want to pull out cash. They'd be like, why? No, huh? Nope. You could pull out a couple $100, maybe a couple thousand, but you start getting in 10, 20 grand or more, forget it. If it's 6-figure money, no way, because they don't have it. They're out there gambling it. And that's what a lot of these exchanges are doing. So how this shakes out, I don't know. But my main fear is I don't really trust the SEC. I don't trust the central banks, and I don't trust Republicans or Democrats. Even though this guy, what he's saying, I kind of agree with, this is the problem with the corrupt two-party system. He's just going to go against whatever the other party does. So, what do you think of this? Put it in the comment section. And then this is more reason to get your Bitcoin off of the exchanges and self-custody. Learn what a cold wallet storage is. Basically, it's like a thumb drive. It's where it's the equivalent of like keeping your money or your gold coins in a safe in your house or a safety deposit box versus letting some bank or exchange hold on to it and gamble with it. That's why self-custody is huge. So I can't wait to read your comments and everything like that. And we're in interesting times. This is why for the last 4 years I've been saying buy Bitcoin, because the central banks could go down and they see Bitcoin as the threat, and they're going to try to self-custody, because a lot of people lost their money on FTX, on BlockFi. So I know you got to buy it on an exchange and then get it off of there. I cannot say that enough. Support our show, everybody, and follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth, and shave your knuckles for justice. Because a lot of those people in Congress, if they check out whoever's for a bill, if they get money from banking industry, from Wall Street, from the financial sector, if they get money from them, don't trust whatever they're saying. That's how you know. Is this bill good? Is this bill bad? Go see who's paying them, who donated to their campaign, who funds them, who do they get their lobby money from? That'll tell you. It doesn't matter if they got an R or a D in front of their name. That means nothing. The real color to look for is the green. And then the color that will save you is orange. Boom. Shave your knuckles for justice. Pow. Boom. The Ethereum extravaganza. The politician absolutely knows what BTC is if she understands MMT. Also, it's difficult to off-board without KYC on exchanges. So millions of dollars sitting on exchange because you can't off-board. Got to select the right exchange. Let me bring up the next segment. This one. All right, we will be back. We'll be back in less than 10 for the next time. We got over 100 people watching. Hello. Like the video, share the video. All those little quick click things help the algorithm get more people to watch our content. And it's a free way to support the show. And if you got some, you want to support us, you can hit a super chat button, which is right on YouTube. There's the tip button on Rockfin. And then there's the BTC right there. Boom, boom, pow. All right. Let us bring in, I'll be right back for the next segment. Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Melwood, and you are watching The Political Vigilante, now with more Bitcoin. You have been orange pilled. Bitcoin's a cult. I'm a crazy Bitcoiner. Satoshi has gotten my brain. No, it's just perfect money. It's perfect money. And so there's a bill being introduced, SB 121. We talked about that in another segment. And we just had the halving April 20th. And we are going into a bull run. There's been a little bit of a pullback. The price today is about, 64,000, something like that. We had an all-time high in March of 73,700, somewhere in there. And as more people get into the Bitcoin space, and I really need you to understand, Bitcoin is digital gold. All the other cryptocurrencies, Ethereum, all the other ones, they are digital stocks. They're like securities with boards of directors and CEOs, and they can be corrupted and arrested. And Bitcoin is digital gold. And more people are realizing the power of Bitcoin. And one of the things that it is attracting institutional money into Bitcoin is that the percentage of Bitcoin owners are what's called hodlers, meaning they're holding it for a long time. Somebody just misspelled hold, HOLD, and they spelled it HODL. So now it's called hodl. That's literally how it is. Like if you're goofy foot in surfing or skateboard or snowboarding, it's literally because a Walt Disney movie in the 60s or 50s had the character Goofy surfing with his right foot forward, and they call that goofy foot. Like that's how crazy. That's how this term hodl comes about. Just a quick history lesson. So what is significant here, and this is a tweet by a friend of the show, Max Kaiser. Demand shock means supply shock. God candle coming in 220,000 in play. So what he's retweeting is this tweet from Vivek. Held on exchanges is hitting an all-time low, right? So what this is, if we push in here, this line is the Bitcoin price, and this blue line is the amount of Bitcoin being held on exchanges. So this goes to January 2023, right? We had a large percentage on exchanges. As the price has gone up, January 2023, the price was the total number, right? So the Bitcoin price was under 20,000 in January 2023. So as the price has gone up here, the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges has come down. Now, what does that mean? Why is that significant? The only reason to keep Bitcoin on an exchange is if you're going to trade. You're either going to cash it out for US dollars or whatever to pay bills or whatever, or you're going to buy, sell it, buy it, sell it high, buy it low. Or so when people pull it off of exchanges, that means they're holding for the long haul, which again, we've talked about this. After every Bitcoin halving, there is a 12 to 14 month bull run. So the last Bitcoin halving was in May of 2020. The Bitcoin price was about 8,500, 8,900. It was under 9,000 a coin. By April of 2021, a year later, it had hit its all-time high of 68, 69,000. That's basically an 8x, right? The previous halving in 2016 had a 10x. The previous halving in 2020 had a 20x. So the price, even if it just does a 4x, that gets us to this 220,000 that Max Keiser is talking about. And that's why the bulk of Bitcoin owners are holding. They're pulling it off of the exchange, which is something I always encourage you to do. If you buy Bitcoin, get it off of the exchange, do self-custody on a cold wallet. Okay. So this is a bullish sign, and it is significant, right? And then there is this. What Michael Saylor said. Saylor calls Bitcoin property, not money or currency. He also realizes that can't work over the long term. The fiat system relies on people saving in it by buying government bonds. The government needs people and entities to continue lending their excess capital to the government in exchange for an interest rate that lags inflation. The term for this is financial repression. Inflate the money supply at 8%, pay the lenders 4 to 5% interest in order to inflate their debt money. Steal 3 to 4% of the purchasing power of the savers each year to accomplish this, right? The fiat system relies on theft. If no one saves in the currency, then the government has no way to inflate their debts away. In other words, they'd have no one to steal from, and the currency would have no value. The reason it would have no value is because money printer would be borrowing even more than it does now. If no one saved in fiat, then government debts would have to be financed entirely by central banks, which would have to print the money to buy government bonds. Those proceeds pay for government expenses. Governments spend that money into the economy, hyperinflation would ensue. If Bitcoin is the property that people prefer to save in, and if that behavior becomes widespread, then fiat will collapse. Saylor understands this when he suggests that Bitcoin will live alongside fiat currencies. This will be true for a period of time, but not in the long term. Saylor is painting a non-controversial view of Bitcoin for the mainstream media. He knows that Bitcoin will eventually swallow all fiat currencies over a long enough time horizon. So if you watched the episodes I did when I was in El Salvador with Max Keiser, he talked a lot about this. This is the scam of the Federal Reserve. It loans money to, somebody like a corrupt person like Jamie Dimon that helped finance Epstein at JP Morgan Chase at whatever 3% that they said there, and then they loan it back to the Federal Reserve at 5%, and then that's how they make their money. It's a scam, as they pointed out there, and it's dependent upon regular people, regular Americans saving their money in fiat, in US dollars. I'll just use the United States as an example, but every nation state, this is similar. The euro, the Aussie dollar, the Canadian dollar, whatever. So if everybody starts saving their money in Bitcoin, holding on Bitcoin, which I showed you that chart, people are not keeping it on exchanges because the exchanges are like banks. They can gamble that Bitcoin away. If you keep, let's say, whatever, I'll just use this round number, $10,000 in Bitcoin on an exchange, they can lend that out and whatever and use that for leverage. If you buy your Bitcoin and put it on a cold wallet, then you basically take the power away from the central banks. It's another reason. The main reason you want to put your Bitcoin in self-custody in a cold wallet is so that they can't steal it, take it, whatever. But also, it helps they have no power. You own your Bitcoin. They can't take it. They can't lend it out, borrow against it, whatever. Only you can do that. That's why Michael Saylor says, don't sell your Bitcoin. If you got to pay bills, I get it. But even if you got to do that, just sell as little amount as possible. Use some Bitcoin in a circular economy. Like when I was in El Salvador, I was paying for a lot of things in Bitcoin. That's good. I get paid. Some of my pay comes in a cryptocurrency, the Rockfin, the Ray token from Rockfin. I converted that to Bitcoin when I was down there, and I would pay for things. I would pay for things down there. I convert some of that to Bitcoin. Some of it I have to convert to fiat to pay my bills in the States. But that's how you get to do that. Circular economies are good. You support using Bitcoin to support, and then your savings, your investment, your assets that you hold on to. Fractional reserve system requires retail banks to keep 10% fiat they lend on hand. So every dollar you have in savings allows them to lend 10x minimum. Sometimes they do 20x, but that's a great point. Follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth, and shave your knuckles for justice. Thanks for watching, everybody. Boom. All right, all right. All right. That is our show, everybody. We had a fantastic show. I had a great interview with Jen Perelman. If you just tuned in, I will be clipping out that interview and dropping it over the next week. If you want to watch it all in its entirety, you can go to patreon.com/Graham Elwood or rockfin.com/Graham Elwood and you support the show. You can support the show there with that on-chain address. There are many ways. So thanks for watching. Nay's Garden is here. Whatever. How are you, brother? Mucho hodling. Good to see you, Nay's Garden. Alex Das Libby is here. Yeah, no government secrets this week because Lee is traveling, but we'll be back next week at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Gavin, Chris, everybody. Ron Placone, the self-care maven. Blaze Saver Wolf. Graham's illegitimate son. Right on. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for supporting what we do. Have a great day. We'll be live again, I think Friday. Yeah, we'll go Friday. Boom. Pow. Like, share, subscribe. Please do that. They unsubscribe you at YouTube all the time. Hit the bell notification button. Follow me on Twitter at Graham Elwood. You can sign up for Rockfin for free as well. Any one of those things, sign up, make sure you're subscribed, all that stuff. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great night, afternoon, morning, or wherever you are in the world. Remember, hodl, Bitcoin, cold wallet, ba-boom.